Hey, everybody, it's interview time. This time with the beautiful, wonderful, amazing Beth Lazarus. Before the interview starts, I have a little compilation she made, her story in pictures, and then we'll go right on into the interview.
Hey Kelly, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm living the dream.
Awesome. Awesome. Me too. All right. So I'm doing interviews with people, sharing their journeys, and that's why we're here today. So tell me your story. Tell me what you want to share.
Well, I guess we'll go all the way back. So I have always been a big kid. My mom loves to tell the story how babies usually lose weight after they're born, and I gained weight, and I just never stopped gaining weight. So I was always the tallest kid. I was always the biggest kid. It wasn't necessarily talked about when I was younger, but my parents would have me go to doctors, and they would my mom would, ask specific questions really quietly. And they would just say, you just got to be careful what she's eating. And I was always a super active kid. I was in all the sports, did all the things, and I just continually got bigger. When I was around 13 years old, I still hadn't gone into puberty. So my mom took me to a pediatric endocrinologist, and I don't have a lot of memory about what all went down, other than they put me on medication to make me go into puberty. And I mean, it just continued. I continued to gain weight and get bigger and bigger. By the time I was 19, I was around 450 pounds. And it became, a really dire situation. So my parents confronted me with the idea of bariatric surgery. I was very offended by that. I was very offended, but also sort of excited. So at 19, I had bariatric surgery, and, I did well. Oh, I struggled with PCOS on and off. And back in that day, it was you just treat with birth control. So I was always on birth control. And that's it. There was really no conversation about if there were any other treatments. You just went on birth control. So, I lost weight over the years, and sort of developed an unhealthy relationship with food and exercise. I was always afraid of gaining weight back. So I would work out hours a day, especially after becoming a mom, which you're going to have to crop all this shit out. But I, tried to get pregnant. I got married. I tried to get pregnant. Didn't happen. Did all of the testing, and they just said I had unexplainable infertility. I did IVF and had conceived twins. My pregnancy was extremely high risk because of the type of bariatric surgery I had, it's a BPDDS, your stomach is smaller, not like today small. That's mainly what they do now, is they just give you a tiny little pouch. The main reason that the type of surgery I had works is because you don't absorb things. You truly ingest things and pass immediately. So it's mainly malabsorption. And that's problematic when you're trying to grow humans. So my pregnancy was extremely high risk. I had to do treatments. There was concern about the babies getting enough nutrients or the things that they needed along with me getting them. I ended up going into labor really early and was in the hospital for a while. But after that, I felt this sense of anxiety. Like I had to be like the most healthy person ever for my kids. So I worked out constantly, and I was always looking to pay the best trainer for the best results and for them to give me the best meal plan, and just sort of went the opposite way. And that worked for a while, but I was continually having to eat less and work out more just to maintain any of the loss I had. And then I was noticing that because I was eating so little, I wanted to gain muscle and I wasn't anymore. And so as I got older, I talked to my doctor about that. Like, why is it that, I'm having to restrict more and more? And he just said, you're perimenopausal. That's just, you're going to have weight gain. That's just the way that kind of works. And then I sort of stumbled upon TikTok. Am I allowed to say that? I refused to get TikTok. I thought it was the dumbest app ever, doing weird dances. You always see the kids out in public doing this. They look like they're, I was just never going to do it. And then I did it. And I've stumbled upon GLP-1 TikTok, and I was a faceless profile, and I sat and I absorbed and I learned and I learned and I learned. And then I started doing my own research, and I talked to my doctor about this Monjuro or something like that. And he was like, that's for no, that's for diabetics. You can't. And I said, well, there's a savings card and it's not for diabetics. These people who have, who've struggled with obesity or PCOS and all these things. And he was like, absolutely not. And then that's when I started doing a lot of research on Compound, and I ordered Compound. It was a pretty easy process. I found the first, not the smart way to go, but I found the first place that I didn't have to meet face to face with a doctor through. I was just too embarrassed and nervous. So I found a place, did that. It sat in my refrigerator for a month because I was terrified. And then I started taking it, and almost immediately, before I noticed any weight loss, almost immediately there was this sense of quiet. It was the most wild thing I've ever experienced. It was just quiet. I wasn't feeling like, I didn't have immediate restriction or all the things that people think that they think they're going to have. It was just quiet. So, I would be going along with my day and then be like, oh, I need to eat something now. It was the most wild thing. It's been life-changing. So I don't know if it's because I'm bariatric. I don't know if it's because I do know so much about appropriate nutrition, but I lost very quickly, quicker than I should have. At that time, it was sort of, you go up every 4 weeks. You go up, you go up, you go up, you go up. And I wish I hadn't done that, because people will argue that, no, you won't lose muscle. Yeah, you will. If you are pushing it too quickly, you will 100% lose muscle. I did. I would say I lost about 60 pounds. See, if I started in March, by July, I had lost 60 pounds. and actually needed to work hard to gain 10 pounds back, but I've been on maintenance since.
Awesome.
It's a lot of words.
No, it's great. Now, you didn't mention it, so I can always remove this if you don't want to talk about it. What about Hashimoto's? I'm not that familiar with it. Like, what do you want to share about that? What it is? How you think it affected things with you?
So I've been on Synthroid or levothyroxine since I was 12, 13 years old. And it just is what it is. Like they said I had hypothyroidism. And so I've just always been on it, but they've never been able to find a dosage that was good. Like my thyroid was always jacked up, always. My whole life it's been, even on the higher dosages of levothyroxine. And I never thought to ask doctors questions. I have hypothyroidism. It was actually, I don't know, 6 months into this journey where I started saying like, hey, so I have heard about Hashimoto's and I, can't seem to have, my thyroid's not regulated. And they just sort of blew me off. Like, even if you do have it, Beth, like we're not going to change the course of action. You have it, it's fine. Then I started pushing more and saying like, well, if I do have it, then it's an autoimmune issue, which means I could have other autoimmune issues. So I would like for us to do some testing to see. And I probably had 3 or 4 months of refusal to test, and they finally did. And sure enough, my markers are totally wild. Now, what does that mean for me? I don't know. I've never had a functioning, healthy thyroid. So I don't, you'll hear people talk about, especially postpartum, I'll hear people talk about their thyroid, being out of whack or whatever it may be, and feeling lethargic or a million other symptoms. I don't know. I've never had a properly functioning thyroid. But it took a lot of time for me to even be tested, for them to even test the markers, because they just said, we'll still just treat you the same.
Crazy.
It is.
It's funny how, because I figured out I was PCOS through this process. Like, I did not know, but once I sat down and talked to my doctor, I'd never looked into the side effects of it or and I had everything. So at 54, I was diagnosed with PCOS.
Isn't that wild?
But now it so much more makes sense now. So
right. And so even then, when I was diagnosed as a young person, I just thought it meant that I had cysts on my ovaries. Like, that's it. Like, that's all, that's why you need the birth control. It'll be better. No, I didn't realize that that's why, I struggled with the insulin resistance or the facial hair or the real hair or the everything. I just thought
not getting pregnant and
couldn't get pregnant. Yeah. So it was always just, let's throw some birth control at it.
Yeah. Crazy. All right. I have some questions. Who or what would you say has been your biggest inspiration along this journey? And it can be more than one thing or.
Who has been an inspiration to me or what keeps me going?
Either or both.
So obesity in my family is very much genetic. My father, his father, I struggled with it. My brother struggled with it. And 2 of my 3 children have very much taken after me. And I just, it sounds so bizarre, but I've been through a lot of trauma in my life. And I would say one of the leading traumas is being an obese child. I mean, it's just traumatizing. You're treated differently by medical providers, by people, by family, by everything. And it just was what it was. I was just a big kid. And now that I know what I know, and I know that it's not my fault or it's not my kid's fault, like I'm absolutely pushing forward so my kids don't have to deal with this until they're so obese that they have to have surgery. So that's just constantly what goes through my mind, just advocating for myself and being as proactive as possible so I can and doing that for them. And hopefully, if that gene is passed down, that they will do the same for their kids.
Right on. And I've heard you touch on this, but like, what would be your advice to parents who have kids that are struggling as far as, not stigmatizing them and you know what I mean? Because I know you've talked about it, like when you go to the doctor, not to say things in front of them, things like that.
Oh yeah, I have set very clear. There was one specific time I took my daughter to the pediatrician. I believe she had strep, and the conversation of healthy diet and BMI came up. And I looked at her, this pediatrician, and I started shaking my head. I just was like, and she continued and talked about being overweight. And I looked at her and I went, we're not doing that. That's not why we're here. And we left, and my daughter got in the car and cried. And I told her that would never happen again. I promised her, like, it would never happen again. And switched pediatricians. And when for a while, until they understood that I meant it, I would send a message to before we would have our visits, and I would say, weight will not be discussed. It will not come up. It will not be discussed. And also just making sure kids eat shit. Can you say shit? Kids eat shit. We all eat shit sometimes. I eventually had my daughter seen by an endocrinologist just because she has every symptom of insulin. I mean, first of all, with her blood results, she's starting to have fatty liver. She has the banding, so the insulin resistance. And so I was like, no, we're not going to do this. We went to a pediatric obesity doctor, and they were beautiful. But they knew what they were doing. They handled it extremely well. We met with a handful of different providers within that appointment. And the only time that there was any issue was when the dietitian came in, and she handed my daughter a plate, and it had like 4 portions, and it had 4, like a square on there, and it talked about the portions you need to have. And my daughter just kind of looked at me, and just like how you don't eat specific things. You shouldn't eat breads, dairies aren't good. You shouldn't eat after this, time, and just all the words. And I just looked at my daughter and I was like, this is going to be such a cool Frisbee. Like, this is going to be such a cool Frisbee. And I just looked at the dietitian and I said, we appreciate you. We appreciate you, but we're done for now. Like, I think we've kind of gone through this. And just letting my daughter know that just because she eats something, she's not wrong. Like, I don't believe in foods being off limits. So I'm never going to, I don't want any of my kids to eat trash all day long. I want them to eat balanced things because it makes you feel better, because it is good for your body. You do want to honor your temple. But if she wants an ice cream cone, we're going to get a damn ice cream cone. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So that's what I'm preaching. That's what I'm saying. We don't eliminate foods. We don't have good foods. We don't have bad foods. We fuel our bodies. Sometimes the way we fuel our body can make us feel a certain way, but this is not your fault. And we're going to figure it out.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, next, let's see. What do you wish you'd known prior to starting a GLP-1?
Ooh. I guess I wish let's see. I've been really fortunate. Well, I guess the main thing, I've had very minimal side effects. I guess what I wish I would have known is I didn't have to go up every 4 weeks, that you milk every dose for what it's worth. And I preach that a lot, especially if you have a tremendous amount of weight to lose. When you're at 15, that's it. There's nowhere else to go. So milk it. Be patient.
Agreed. Yeah. That was going to be one of my questions. So that's awesome. I agree. I talk about that all the time. So, all right. How about someone who is on the fence, considering starting these meds, or not even on the fence, but just considering it? Like, what's a piece of advice?
Just do it. That's so cliche and tacky. I actually, it's really interesting because I've put myself out here on the interweb and, sort of told my story and lended myself to help people. But I've been pretty quiet in my real life. It's more intimidating that way. And I've sort of stepped out of that comfort zone and have been having conversations and talking about it. And so I've had people in my real life come to me and ask me questions. And, the first couple of things they'll ask is like, well, they'll say like, well, I heard that. And then it's usually something wild. And I'll be like, well, you're asking me because you've seen me be successful. And, there's these other people you can check out too. So just because an outlet, a news outlet, something on the internet says it's so, doesn't make it so. And then also another question that people ask is, but do I have to do I have to take it forever? And I don't have that answer necessarily. It makes sense to me. It could sound generic, but I will say, like, if you have the disease of obesity, there's a good chance that this is a lifelong medication, like any other medication to treat your illness. But maybe not. Maybe not. I can't give a clear-cut answer.
Yeah.
But I just, I don't know. I wish, I'm just always very eager for people to start so they can actually see how amazing this just changes everything.
Wow. Yeah, I was one that 12 hours later, my brain was just different. And it was like, what is this? What is happening? So it's pretty amazing. So speaking of maintenance, like if you're willing to share, what does that look like for you and how did you figure out dose, frequency, all of that?
I still don't completely know. So I've been doing 10 since June of last year, and that's worked. I have tried to stretch it out. I've gone, let's see, 7, 14, almost 21 days. I've toyed with it. Now, what happens for me, keeping in mind that, I do have some autoimmune issues and I do have PCOS, is by the end of week 2, will start to feel the inflammation. I will feel joint pain. I will feel achiness. I will feel even more lethargic. Because one of the side effects for me on this medication is I do feel pretty zapped, but I will feel even more zapped. So I've been a tried and true 7 to 10 days, 10, and I've been able to maintain my weight doing that. So that's what's working for me.
Awesome.
Obviously, for financial reasons, I would love to try tapering down, but I sort of am also like, if it ain't broke,
you're right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's worked very well for me for almost a year.
Yeah. Have you ever had to go off? I'm going to have to when I get knee surgery, but I'm like, let's see what happens,
That's really interesting. Yes-ish, not as when I had surgery, I did have to. They only told me to not take it a week before. And that's because I'm bariatric and I've never been cursed with the constipation like y'all get. It's funny because I've gone to these meetups and things and I'll be like, when are you people going to freaking eat something? And it's because they're all so full of shit. You know what I mean? They just I'm hungry. But yeah. I've never dealt with the constipation. I think more than you better put this all in there. I poop like a normal person now. Used to, because of the surgery, I would anytime I put anything in my mouth, I had to go to the restroom.
Oh, so it's kind of regulated it for you.
It's made me more normal. So I've gone off of it, by choice for the 21 days, but I've not had to longer than a week.
Okay.
What are they telling you? 2 weeks or more?
2. Wait, you said you went off at 21 days once? Did you
When I was toying with
okay.
dosing, I was like, okay. Yeah. And you know what? I didn't have a lot of I wouldn't say that I had tremendous amount of food noise or a desire to overeat even at those 21 days. It was just the physical symptoms were very much back.
Yeah, I want to try it just to try it too, but that's just me. I want to see what happens, and then I will gladly go back on. But then maybe if I'm off at like a month, I could come back on at a lower dose and try to have a maintenance dose that's even lower. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm trying not to go up too fast. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's about it, Beth. I appreciate your time. Everyone, go into the description. All of Beth's links are down there. Follow her on all the places. Any last words, ma'am?
Anyone who follows me, I'm sorry in advance. My content used to be relatively meaningful. Now it feels like it's garbage. And you know what I mean? In some respects, I'm struggling with the feeling like I'm letting people down, and I need to sort of stop that.
TikTok is letting people down, but
yeah,
what do you expect?
Unfortunate, but I feel bummed out that I can't talk so freely about things that I think are so amazing.
Yeah, well, that's why we have YouTube and stuff like that. So
I'm gonna have to learn. I couldn't even make this work.
I'll have to come for a visit. We'll do a tech training. You can give me a makeup tutorial, and I can give you a tech tutorial.
It's funny. I was hearing you. I'm a licensed cosmetologist, girl.
Oh, nice. And you did hair too. Like I cut my own hair right now because I live in West Virginia. So
I'll cut you up in Atlanta.
Seriously, we could do some trades. So I'll bring some crystals. Bring some witchy stuff for you. All right, I'm going to end this, and then we can chat.